before we get into it, like the video. Yeah, like the video. You're not going to go bald though. You're not going to go bald. You're actually going to gain hair follicles if you like the video and subscribe. Let's get into it. Now, I'm going to be honest. The France versus Paraguay game felt like abuse. I didn't feel right watching that because Paraguay thought they were fighting in the Paraguayan War that happened back in 1864. But this time they weren't coming up against Brazil and Argentina. They were coming up against France and Mbappe, because in the game it would be his penalty that would eventually make the difference. This game was not a fun watch and probably was the worst performance that I'd seen at this competition. This felt like watching prime Manchester City try and break down Sheffield United. Except this Paraguay side turned this game into a WWE match. And you know what was even worse about this? The fact that they made it into a WWE match and the referee was involved. I need to know if the Paraguayan mafia were involved in bribing the referee. Please, someone tell me that this guy had a bet saying that, oh, he was not going to give out a yellow card in this game to Paraguay. Because that's a fact. How on earth have Paraguay left this game with no yellow cards? And then you look at the French players that got booked and it's a disgrace. This is an absolute disgrace. I mean, France would have 75% of the possession in this game. It was ridiculous, but Paraguay had the French players stuck in the trenches. It looked like they had formed tunnels, in front of their goal because France couldn't really do much. Not because Paraguay were exceptional in defense, but because, they were using all the tricks in the dark arts book. I know for a fact Mikel Arteta was watching this game with a pen and a pad. And in terms of Matheus Galazar, this guy, honestly, he needs to get M'd off. I don't want to ever see this guy again. Every single time he's played throughout this entire tournament, he's just done something annoying. And for some reason, he just never gets booked. Like, people that went into this game not even wanting France to win, came out of it wanting France to destroy Paraguay 5-0. And that's a fact, because if you were watching the British broadcast of this game, they started off by saying, oh, France, they really started slow, Paraguay are doing well. And by the end of it, they were slandering Paraguay. And rightfully so, because they used every trick in the book to stall France. Whether it was ganging up on Mbappe with like 5 people around him after he just shoved the player, to trying to get 6 players around Doué before he wriggled around and earned himself a penalty. And the pass count for this game was even more ridiculous, with France having 568 passes to Paraguay having less than 200. France pretty much had the ball the entire game, but this Paraguayan setup was not being broken down. The only outlet for them at points was just Julio Enciso, who's currently playing for Strasbourg, and we've seen him at Brighton before, but he was their kind of, outball along with Almiron. And from time to time, they would get the ball in these positions and try and forge a counter-attack against France, but they would just get squashed and the ball would be recycled and France would have it again. Paraguay have now announced themselves as the pantomime villains of, the World Cup 2026. Of course, they are out of the competition, but we will look back fondly at this squad of buffoons. A team that don't really care about playing actual football. They just care about results, getting in the players' heads and doing some tomfoolery. And you know what stuck out like a sore thumb to me? The parallels between this side, Paraguay, going up against France, an international giant, someone that got to the last World Cup final. And then you compare this game with Cabo Verde and how they played against Argentina. Like, you're always rooting for the underdog in games like this when you're a neutral. And that was a success when we watched Cabo Verde go up against Argentina. But then you look at this game, rooting for the underdog was never an option because they are so, unlikable. Like, I genuinely think these Paraguay players got flashbacks to the war in 1864. The Paraguayan War that went on until 1870, where they were fighting up against Brazil, Argentina and Uruguay. Because they were trying to take the French squad to the trenches, barricading them, elbowing them, punching them. It did not matter. There was one clip where I think it's Galazar just slaps Kunde. But there was no way they were going to come out of this game unharmed themselves. Because there's one man on the pitch that was more powerful than the entire nation. Some will call him one of the best in the world and others will call him the dictator. I'm talking about Mbappe. He would eventually get his chance to put the ball in the back of the net after Désiré Doué was brought on for Bradley Barcola, who wasn't having, his most vintage game, but still played pretty decent. Désiré Doué would come on, spark a bit more brilliance on that left side, take on a bunch of Paraguayan players, dazzle himself into the box, and is brought down. And in that instance, it's not given. This referee is blind. And eventually, after a VAR check, it's given. Mbappe steps up for the penalty after a lot of controversy surrounding it, with the Paraguayan players all getting around the penalty spot. Dembele's holding the ball. They're literally trying to kick out the penalty spot before Mbappe takes it. And amongst all this pressure, you just see the cool head of Mbappe. Been there, done it, scored 2 penalties in literally the World Cup final back in 2022 against a keeper that was way better than this one. And he slots it home to the right side of the goalkeeper, and it's 1-0. But what really needs to be spoken about is the fact that, how did the referee not see that this was a penalty? Yo, again, who paid him off? There must be mafia in Paraguay. Maybe I'm going to have to take this investigation into my own hands. Book a flight to Paraguay. Maybe I won't come back after releasing this video. But the referee Ilgliz Tanteshev, yes, Ilglizi, I had to get your name, because there was no way you were going to come out of this fixture without getting some of the blame. This guy got bribed. The first ever referee that I've seen that's been from Uzbekistan. It's a shame to see, as a patriot for Uzbekistan. Come on, bro. You've ruined the entire nation's reputation. It's all your fault, because I don't know what you were playing at. This guy was determined to let anything that looked like a foul go. We were just letting it slide. And then things that weren't fouls, he was giving as fouls. I mean, France were getting grabbed, dragged, shoved, punched, kicked, slapped, choked out. It did not matter. This was a no holds barred WWE game. TLC, they were going to start climbing up ladders and drop kicking Mbappe, Doué, Dembele, Elise. The amount of times I saw Elise get brought down. And the funniest moment in the game is when Galazar, fouls Elise, and he's like this to Elise, grabs him and does this. And then Elise grabs him back and does this. And the referee penalized Elise. And I don't know the general consensus of this game, but the main villain was Galazar. And somehow, after everything I've said to you guys so far, we haven't even really spoken about how the game was. We've just spoken about how the goal was. But after all of this stuff, this Paraguayan team got 0 yellow cards. Now we need to take a breather. We actually need to take a breather. Let's just not talk. Let's just not talk right now. We're not talking. We're just taking a break. I'm not taking no cuts. We're not cutting it. Let's just process the fact. Paraguay got 0 yellow cards in this fixture. Did you watch the game? Please. Did you watch it? Reply in the comments. Because there is no way the Paraguayan Defense League got 0 yellow cards in this fixture. They were fighting. And for that decision to give no yellow cards in this game, I'm, on behalf of the Jibrules community, Jibrules 101, we are giving the referee a red card. I don't want to ever see this referee again. Unfortunately, obviously, we love Uzbekistan. We do love Uzbekistan. Just look at the scenery. Look at the scenery. Wow. But the referee's got to go. And I think the main point to take from this game, of course, there's not much action to really speak about. Of course, there was brilliance from Doué at times and build-up play that was okay. Kone had a few shots here and there. And Mbappe was taking the mick-up points because, he's way better than these players and they're just fouling and fouling him again. But the one key thing that I took away from this game is the headspace that this French team is in. Because even when facing an obscure side that utilizes the dark arts and gamesmanship a lot, they've been able to cool their heads and really just get, the goal where needed, have a few moments of brilliance and hold it up. The defending was good throughout the game, despite Upamecano not having individually the best performance of his tournament so far. And I think this game could have gone, completely left if, when Mbappe got fouled early on into the game and the entire team rushed around him, if they reacted in a bad way. But they cooled their heads. They know what the real goal of this tournament is, and they knew that with their brilliance they could get past Paraguay and move on to the next stage. So they did well to, rally up the troops, play with the same aggressiveness that Paraguay were playing them, and also eventually buy some fouls. Trying to also replicate the same dodgy tactics that Paraguay were utilizing against Germany by kind of running down the clock, going to the corner and taking on players where they could. Kylian Mbappe has also added to his tally in this World Cup with another goal, meaning that he has 7 so far in this tournament. Désiré Doué was the guy that really changed this game, however, being so direct, showing that he does deserve a spot in this team over Bradley Barcola, and they're just going to battle it out. Because one brings this raw dynamic pace, and we saw Barcola go past players and nearly get in as well. But then Désiré Doué comes on and he's got that, the magic feet, the quick feet, the ability to just whiz round a player and abuse them. And I'm going to say this, I think the only likable player on that pitch, the one that, I think was quite respectable and that still had a good game despite conceding, was Orlando Hill in goal. This guy is a great goalkeeper. Despite conceding that penalty, he would stop, another big chance from Kylian Mbappé. Actually, a few times from Kylian Mbappé. But Mbappé could have scored 2 or 3. Hill, was there to stop him. And I think for the French team, surviving a game like this matters. It shows a lot of their mentality. And next up, they'll be playing Morocco. And of course, that was the other game that played out today, with Morocco winning 3-0 against Canada. Now again, we're going to be honest here. The scoreline was pretty harsh, because if you watch that entire game, Canada didn't really deserve to lose 3-0. But that's what makes up the difference between teams that are at such a high level. Even when their backs are against the wall, you give them a couple breakaways, a couple opportunities to transition against you, and they will take them. And that's what it felt like when watching Canada versus Morocco. Morocco are now this dynamic force in football, a side that just took down the Netherlands last round. And even though Canada would completely rule the first half in terms of possession and just being aggressive, winning the ball back, they just felt toothless in attack. Something like How to Train Your Dragon, they had no teeth. So all action, but there's nothing. There's no end product. And that was so frustrating from a neutral point of view. Watching a game where Canada probably could have taken the lead, and they're just not doing anything. They're not converting anything. And I think the big takeaway from this matchup that we watched yesterday is the fact that Morocco have the better individuals and the better players. But ultimately, Canada, they relied a lot on the system that was being implemented by Jesse Marsch. I think that he controlled the game really well from the start. And then eventually, Canada fell off the rails. Morocco took their chances and they get their goals. Canada would finish this game with 10 shots and 33 touches inside the Morocco box, compared to Morocco's 5 shots and just 9 touches in the Canada box. And after weathering the Canadian storm in that first half, Morocco would get their first goal in the 50th minute. And this goal would be the turning point, with Hakimi giving the ball to Ounahi, who was, at the edge of the area waiting for the ball when they were taking a set piece. And with that ball being played to him like a layoff, he would take it first time and finish it beautifully. Not really going for a powerful strike, but just guiding the ball into the bottom right corner. And Canada should have done better there, They've left him open at the edge of the box and he's just got too much time and space. Time and space to look up and pick where he wants to shoot. And I think Ounahi in this game really made the difference, where he was kind of more deep inside the pitch in the first half. In the second half, he would be told to roam forwards. And roam forwards he did, with a lot of box crashing runs late on. And he would actually double his tally in the game, getting 2 and his second in the 82nd minute. And this one was the dagger for Canada, because they were 1-0 before this, but they were still putting the pedal on the gas and going for it. But it's one transition. It's Brahim Díaz on the counter-attack. He's driving, he's given the ball to Ounahi, and Ounahi has finished it off. An even better finish than the first one. Now he shot it high into the roof of the net. And then deep into stoppage time, Morocco would get their third, rubbing salt in the wounds that were inflicted onto Canada. With another bit of transitional play and Brahim Díaz being selfless as usual. Brahim Díaz also puts himself up there with 4 assists in this World Cup, slipping the ball to Rahimi, who was actually brought on because Saibari got injured early on into this game, and he slotted it perfectly home with his left foot. A well-deserved goal that will boost his confidence going into their next game against France. But Canadians, Drakians, Toronto Raptadians, please, oh Canada, let's just calm down. Let's actually just respect the fact that Canada even got to this stage. This tournament, you've got your first ever finals win, you've got your first ever group stage progression, and football will just continue to grow in your country. This is a proper national team evolution that Canadians are witnessing, so, you've got a good batch of players there, and I think in years to come, hopefully the sport will get bigger and you will get better. But what I do want to question is the fact that Jesse Marsch didn't bring on Alphonso Davies. That was, a big sticking point for me when watching this game. I felt like you needed some sort of outball, someone that could really stretch the pitch on that left-hand side. And you didn't bring him on with 15 minutes to go, where you brought on a double substitution. That's the only gripe that I had with the game. but you guys let me know your thoughts. And this sets up a fixture between Morocco and France, a game that we have actually seen, I think just last World Cup. And we won't doubt Morocco going into this game. Hakimi is in fine form, Brahim Díaz is assisting well, Bono's put up a great performance in this game against Canada, Ounahi is strutting his stuff in midfield and now added goals. But against France, against this caliber of player, it is going to be a different level. And if Morocco start the game like how they did against Canada, getting swarmed, not having the ball at points and, looking kind of lifeless, it's going to be a long day. Because France won't, spill opportunities like Canada did. They won't waste their chances. They will just put you to the sword and just finish you off. But that's all from me. Today we witnessed pure Haramball in the round of 16 of the World Cup. And I will of course be back tomorrow for Brazil versus Norway and also England versus Mexico. I don't know if I'm going to combine them into one video or do two separate videos, but let's just see if you guys enjoy this one. Of course, this has been Gibral's 101. We are close to 20,000 on this channel, so make sure you leave a like, subscribe if you're new to it, and of course, stay safe, stay blessed, and peace.